Reach your hand into the cool, dark soil of my garden, push past the green leaves, and pull. And there, heavy and dirt-warm in your palm, is the humblest treasure I know. From the outside, it looks like nothing, a plain, rough, reddish root, the kind a wealthy man might step over without a second glance. But break it open, and the inside stops you still. A purple so deep and so rich it does not look like food at all. It looks like something precious, something a king might wear. This root fed my village through the hungriest years of our history. It fed my grandmother, who lived to 102. It has fed me for 94 years, and I believe, after a very long life of watching, that it is one of the quiet reasons the people of Ogimi stay younger than their years, long after the rest of the world has begun to fade. We simply call it imo, the purple sweet potato. Benny Emo, and today I am going to tell you everything about it, what it is, why that purple color matters so greatly, how we grew it and cooked it and ate it nearly every day, and the quiet power it carries. Power the modern world has all but forgotten, even as it sits there, cheap and overlooked, in the corner of the market. None of this will cost you more than a few small coins. This is, I promise you, one of the least expensive foods in all the world. And yet I believe it may be one of the most valuable. But I will tell you now, there is one thing about this purple root, one part of the plant that almost no one outside my village ever thinks to eat, that may be even more valuable than the root itself. We never wasted it. We never waste anything. And the researchers who came to study us were surprised to find we had been quietly eating for centuries, a thing the rest of the world throws straight into the bin. I am going to save it for the end, because once you understand the root, this last part will land on you with all its weight. So stay with me all the way to the soil. Let me tell you first of my grandmother, because she is where my knowing begins, as always. She lived to 102 years old, and for most of her life, and certainly for all of mine as a boy, the purple sweet potato was not a side dish at her table. It was the center, the king of the bowl. In the lean years after the war, when there was almost nothing else, there was emo morning and evening, day after day. We were poor in those years, poorer than you can easily imagine, and yet, and this is the strange thing, the thing that took me a lifetime to understand, we were healthier in that poverty, living on this single purple root, than the rich world is today in all its plenty. My grandmother grew strong on it, she grew old on it, 102 years, built in great part on a root pulled from the dirt. So let me give you the first thing to understand. It is the color, that impossible, deep, royal purple. In nature, my friend, color is never an accident. That deep purple is the sign of something powerful packed inside the root, the same family of natural pigments that turns the blueberry blue and the red cabbage red. The scientists call them anthocyanins, a hard word for a simple thing, the colored compounds that the plant makes to protect itself, and that seem to do good, quiet work in the body of the one who eats them, and our purple sweet potato holds these compounds in great abundance, far more than the pale, ordinary potato the wider world knows. We were not eating a bland starch. We were eating one of the most deeply colored, most richly protective foods that grows. I remember my grandmother holding up a freshly cut imo, the purple flesh bright against her weathered hand, and telling me in her plain way, Kenji, the color is the medicine. She had never read a study. She had never heard the word anthocyanin and never would. But she knew, the way the old people knew so many things, that the deep color of a food was the sign of its strength. And the scientists who came generations later with their instruments and their notebooks found that she had been right all along. The researchers who studied the traditional Okinawan diet found it built upon this root, and they tied it directly to the strength and the long, healthy years of the people who ate it. They noted especially how the deep purple varieties carried these protective compounds in such richness, not as a supplement, not as a pill, as the daily, ordinary central food of the people. And here is the contrast that should make you pause. The world now sells those very purple compounds back to you pressed into expensive capsules, sealed in dark bottles, marketed as antioxidant supplements at a great price, promising youth and protection. Whole industries are built upon the colored compounds in plants. And it is the very same thing my grandmother pulled from the dirt for almost nothing and ate every single day of her 102 years. They are selling you dearly what grew beneath her feet for free. That is the first thing. The second thing is how we grew it, and why that matters more than you might think. In my village, the IMO was not bought from a far-off place, trucked across the country, stored for weeks in plastic, sprayed and waxed, and left to slowly lose its life on a bright shelf. It grew in the garden behind the house. We planted it ourselves, in our own soil, and we pulled it from the ground when we needed it, and we cooked it that same day, while it was still alive with everything the earth had given it, from soil to bowl in the space of a single morning. This closeness to the food, this freshness, is itself part of the secret, and the modern world has lost it almost entirely. A vegetable begins to fade the moment it is pulled from the earth. The longer it travels, the longer it sits, the more of its quiet goodness slips away. The food on the bright shelf of the great store may have been picked weeks ago in another land and shipped across an ocean. Ours was picked at dawn and eaten by dark. There is no comparison. We ate our food at the very peak of its life, the way nature intended, and our bodies received everything it had to give. I think of a woman in my village named Ushi who reached 99. Ushi had the finest emo patch in all of Ogimi, and she was quietly proud of it. She used to say that a sweet potato bought from a store was a sweet potato that had forgotten where it came from, and that a person who eats forgetful food becomes a little forgetful themselves. She meant it as a joke, I think. But like so many of the old jokes, there was a deep truth hidden inside it. Eat food that is close to the earth and close to home, and you stay close to the earth yourself. And once more, the contrast. The world pays dearly for fresh food that is not truly fresh at all, that has traveled half the globe to reach the plate. We grew ours by the door, for the price of a few seeds and a little labor, and ate it at the height of its life. That is the second thing. The third thing is how we cooked it, which is to say, how gently. We did not drown the emo in oil. We did not fry it into something unrecognizable, or bury it under sugar and butter and cream the way I am told the wider world treats the potato. We cooked it simply. We steamed it, most often soft and whole and warm, its skin slipping off easily, its purple flesh sweet and dense and satisfying all on its own. Sometimes we boiled it in a little water. Sometimes in the cold months we roasted it slowly, but always simply, always gently. We let the root taste of itself. This gentleness matters, because the way you cook a food can either preserve its quiet goodness or destroy it. Drench a thing in hot oil, and you change it into something else, something heavier, something the body must struggle with. Steam it gently, and you keep it close to what the earth made. My grandmother steamed her emo in an old bamboo basket over a pot, the way her mother had, the way all the grandmothers of Ogimi had for longer than anyone could say. The food that came out was sweet enough that we never thought to add a single thing to it. The root was the whole pleasure. It needed no costume. And think of the contrast once again. The world takes the humble potato, a good and honest food, and ruins it, fries it in oceans of cheap oil, salts it heavily, sells it in bright bags, and wonders why it brings illness instead of health. The fault was never in the root. The fault was in what the world did to it. We did almost nothing to ours, and it kept us well for 100 years. That is the third thing. Now, Before I tell you about the part of this plant that almost no one outside my village ever eats, the part that may be more valuable than the root itself, let me pause for just a moment. Everything I am sharing with you today, and a great deal more, this purple root and the other foods of the village, the way we grew them and cooked them, the daily habits, the deeper reasons the people of Ogimi reach 100 years and stay so well to the very end, I have gathered together into one simple written guide. I call it the Okinawa Longevity Method. The link to it rests in the description just below this video, and it will cost you nothing at all. I ask only one small thing in return, that you stay with me to the very last word, because what I am about to tell you now is the part the world has forgotten most completely of all. So let me tell you, the part of the purple sweet potato plant that the wider world throws away, the leaves. Yes, the leaves. Above the purple root, the sweet potato sends up a sprawl of broad green leaves and tender vines, and in most of the world, when the root is harvested, those leaves are torn off and tossed aside, thrown onto the heap, fed to the animals, or simply left to rot, treated as worthless. But in my village, we never wasted them. We ate them. We have eaten the sweet potato leaves for centuries, cooked gently with a little garlic, or dropped into the miso soup, or simmered with the other greens of the garden. To us, the leaf was never waste. The leaf was food, and good food at that. And here is the thing that surprised the researchers. The leaves of the sweet potato are themselves rich in goodness, in the green compounds, the vitamins, the minerals that the body welcomes. We were not eating them out of mere poverty, though poverty taught us never to waste. We were eating, all along, a nourishing green that the rest of the world was throwing straight into the bin. One plant, the purple root below and the green leaf above, gave us two foods where the wider world saw only one and discarded the other. My grandmother used to say that the earth gives us no waste, only gifts we are too foolish to recognize, and she was right. The whole plant was a gift. We took all of it, we honored all of it. Nothing the garden gave us was ever thrown away, and here, my friend, is why the world forgot this humble purple treasure and threw away its leaves besides, why a food so cheap, so nourishing, so complete was pushed to the forgotten corner of the market while the bright and the processed filled the center. Because there is no money in it. Think on it truly, and you will never unsee it. No company can grow rich selling you a purple root that you could grow yourself in a patch of dirt behind your own house. No fortune can be built on a green leaf that the world has been throwing away for free. There is no patent on a sweet potato. There is no brand, no clever package, no advertisement, no markup. And so the great machine of the food world, which can only ever speak to you of the things it can sell, falls completely silent on the humble emo, while it shouts all day, every day, about the bright and the boxed and the profitable. They will gladly sell you the purple antioxidant supplement in its costly bottle. They will never tell you to go and grow the purple root that holds the very same thing, because there is not a single coin in it for them. So the truth was not hidden in a vault. It was simply left unspoken, drowned beneath the noise of all the things that can be sold, until a whole world came to believe that a cheap root pulled from the dirt could not possibly be one of the most valuable foods on earth, because no voice it ever heard had told it so. And meanwhile, the purple treasure sat quiet in the gardens of Okinawa, free as the soil, feeding the longest-lived people in the world. My grandmother knew its worth at 102. It was never for sale at its true value. That is exactly why you never knew. But you know now, and it waits for you in the corner of your own market for a few small coins beginning today. So let me ask you something, my friend, and I would truly be glad if you would answer me below in the comments where I can read it. Have you ever eaten a true purple sweet potato, not the pale ordinary kind, but the deep royal purple one? And did you know before today that the leaves of the plant could be eaten at all? Or have you, like most of the world, been throwing such gifts away without ever knowing their worth? Tell me honestly. There is no shame in not having known. The world made very sure we would not. And tell me too, what other humble, overlooked food does your own grandmother's table hold that the modern world has forgotten? I read as many of your words as these old eyes can still manage, and so do the others quietly gathering in this place. And if this old gardener's words found their way into your heart today, then stay with us and walk with us a while. Subscribe, not to follow me, an old man near the end of his long road, but to join a small and growing circle of people who are choosing, together, to remember what the world was in far too great a hurry to throw away. We are not building an audience here. We never were. We are building a moai, a circle of people who hold one another the way my village has always done, the way Kame and Ushi and my grandmother always did. In my next video, I am going to share something that may trouble you and that I believe you ought to know. There are food sitting in kitchens all over the world right now, eaten every single day, that the people of my village never touched, not because we were wise enough to refuse them, but because they simply never came to us. And I have watched, with my own eyes, what happened to my island and to its young people when these foods finally arrived. It is a warning, and a true one, and I will tell it to you plainly. But until then, my friend, here is what I ask of you. The next time you walk through the market, go to the humble corner, the overlooked corner, the one without the bright packages and the loud promises. Find the plainest root you can, and if you could find a true purple one, all the better. Take it home. Steam it gently, the way my grandmother did, in a little basket over a pot. Eat it warm, just as it is, with nothing added, and taste how sweet a thing the earth gives for almost nothing. And if ever you find the leaves still attached, do not throw them away, cook them, honor them. They too are a gift. The world is loud, and the sellers are many, and they will tell you every single day that the foods worth eating are the bright ones, the costly ones, the ones in the beautiful packages with the promises printed on the front. But the truth is quiet, and the truth is humble, and the truth has been waiting in the dirt all along, purple and patient beneath the green leaves in the corner of the garden. My grandmother knew it at 102, her hand bright with purple flesh, telling a small boy that the color was the medicine. And it is waiting now for you too, not in any pharmacy, not in any bottle, not behind any price, but in the cool, dark soil, in the humblest root there is, in the quiet, ancient gift the earth has been offering us, freely, all along. Pull it from the ground, my friend. Honor the whole of it, and waste nothing.